Section 4 of Shadowland, November 1919. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Claire. Shadowland, November 1919 by Various. The Lesson of Urban by Kenneth Macgowan. The movies are slowly making the acquaintance of Joseph Urban. 3 years ago, he created a stage setting for the Strand Theatre. 2 years ago, he redecorated the stage of the Rialto. Now this season, he has designed and built a gorgeous new picture frame for the Rivoli, and according to the gossip of celluloid Broadway, he is to make a series of settings that will gradually fill the whole circuit of Paramount Artcraft theaters across the country. It is a slow way of getting acquainted, and it hasn't yet brought Urban into actual production. But, like most things in film history, it has been a swifter acquaintance than the drama made with this great scenic artist. Joseph Urban came to America in 1912. He had been an art director of the Vienna Hoftheater until Felix Weingartner, the conductor, and Henry Russell, head of the Boston Opera House, induced him to leave Austria and come to the new home of music drama in the Back Bay. For something over 2 years, his rich and brilliant settings, together with a good ensemble, made opera in Boston far more satisfying and moving than it ever was at the star-ridden Metropolitan before the war and public opinion forced Mr. Gotti to give up his Italian scene painters and employ men like Urban, Ansfield, the Russian, and Wenger, the Pelgerd, the Americans. But that was not until the season of 1917-18. Meantime, George C. Tyler and Florenz Ziegfeld had rescued Urban from the war wreckage of the Boston Opera House. Tyler got Urban to paint the settings for Phyllis Nielsen Terry's Twelfth Night and the Edward Sheldon fairy spectacle The Garden of Paradise during the season of 1914-15. Both plays failed, and if Ziegfeld had not appeared the next spring with a contract for the Follies, Urban's vogue on Broadway would have been still longer postponed. Incidentally, the Follies would have remained the same hodgepodge of American beauties that they had been since Ziegfeld began in 1907. Then came the huge Masque of Caliban for the celebration of the Shakespeare tercentenary. After that, more Follies, musical comedies for Claw and Erlanger, a little short-lived Shakespeare for James K. Hackett, and half a dozen unsuccessful comedies and dramas, with the capitulation of the Metropolitan Opera House to the new stagecraft and its principal American protagonist somewhere in between. But in all Urban's 7 years in America, the mass of big Broadway public and the millions of the road have yet to see his work in serious drama. They can judge it only by opera and musical comedy. Fortunately, however, in these variegated fields, practically all that he has to give in theory or practice has been foreshadowed. Urban's work is a part of the great movement towards a new sort of imaginative and vital, expressive type of production which swept Russia, Germany, and to some extent Paris, London, and Dublin from 1905 to 1915. Its twin gods were Gordon Craig and Adolphe Appia. They were supplied with the usual number of prophets: Max Reinhardt, Stanislavski, Jacques Rouchet, and a score more. The first tenet of the new faith is the expression in scenery and lights of the atmosphere of the play. The scenery must not try to win applause for itself like some vainglorious star. It must exist only to make the mood of the play clearer to the audience. Thus, the setting for La Belle Helene and the lighting indicated in the sketch picture a fantastic Greece as airy and joyous and irresponsible as the music of Offenbach's delicious satire on the Homeric story of Helen of Troy. A second tenet is simplicity. The artist must get rid of everything that is going to clutter up a stage and interfere with actors on the one hand, and clear beauty and expressiveness on the other. Take the scene in heaven from Lietz's St. Elizabeth, as Urban has sketched it for the Metropolitan Opera House. The golden streets of that city are nowhere to be seen, nor the angelic hosts. Indeed, a little of the base earth is still to be seen at each side in the trees of the forest, at whose feet Elizabeth dies in the preceding scene. And yet in that great blue sky and the single grace-filled arch, heightened by a miraculous and lambent light, there is all of heavenly kingdom of the saints. The gates of heaven stand wide. The modern stage artist simplifies, but he does not make barren. He retains the thing which suggests to the mind of the audience far more than he could ever paint. Consider the sketch of the church scene in Gounod's Faust. Following a suggestion of Erler, the Munich artist, Urban had concentrated the whole cathedral and all the authority and mercy of the church in a single great column of the nave. Above us we feel the whole majesty and grace of Gothic architecture. Note also that while suggestion has brought us the whole edifice of faith, the simplicity from which it springs permits the girl Marguerite to stand out in her proper dramatic proportions. In an elaborate cathedral scene, complete and detailed, she would be lost. Here she stands revealed. The new scenic artist brought into the theater the simple and one would imagine obvious principles of all pictorial art which the conventional scene painters neglected in trying to paint real shadows and build canvas churches and tinsel heavens. A good many of the older men and young ones of no more ability or mental grasp are now trying to imitate the men of the modern school. But however much they may try to be simple or to use suggestion and symbolism, one test usually vanquishes them. They may adopt the impressionist broken color as the moderns have done instead of flat mixed paint, hiding the thinness of their canvas and giving sparkle and life to their colors, but they never master design. They cannot compose. Their stage designs have none of the proportion and balance of mass and of light and shade which you will find in such a sketch of the new movement as Urban's drawing for the Jewess. Now, what if all this belongs to movies? Certainly the decorative value and architectural distinction which Urban can give to the stage frame about the silver sheet. So much has already been taken by the movies, but why not more? Why not ask another artist with a different style to do what Hugo Ballin has done for Goldwyn in his simplified settings? Imagine the scene from Faust on the screen. The same single column soaring out of the camera's eye up to the infinite. The same dim background lit with half shadows revealing nothing, unless it is the terrors of Mephistopheles that hang about the girl. Strength and reality in that great column. All the spirit of the church in its uplifting lines and in the comforting flicker of the candles. All the threats and terror of the devil in the black distances. Is it worth remarking, in the hope that some producer may profit by it, that such a church, made of one column, one piece of property, some nondescript wings or draperies, and about 1/10 the ordinary amount of electric current, would be surprisingly more expressive than a board and plaster atrocity for which our failure-harassed movie-makers now spend thousands? And what can be done with a church can be done with a slave market. A huge Greek column seems just a bit taller and bigger if you show only 10 feet of its gigantic base. A whole Arabian Nights city, as gigantic in the mind's eye as Brennan's palace of A Daughter of the Gods, can be fused from the base of a column, the corner of a great wall, the foot of an arch, and a window with the silhouette of a turret in the distance, and a dozen of such little bits of a great immensity which only exists in the imagination of the audience. But the producer will doubtless go on spending money. He likes plaster streets that cost $20,000. They make him feel important. It takes an artist or an ordinary movie fan to walk down the corridors of the imagination. That is the lesson of Urban. Urban's present work and methods are a curious growth of his early career. As a boy, he went to art school in Vienna, while his father, who happened to be the superintendent of schools, thought him safely ensconced in a law class. Not satisfied with one art school, young Urban went to 2 at once, the Viennese Academy of Fine Arts in the mornings and the Polytechnic in the afternoons. One gave him architecture from the angle of pure art, the other from the practical side. When Urban's father discovered that his boy was disobeying his instructions and avoiding the study of law, the parental wrath descended. Young Urban's art career would have come to a sorry end had he not made a friend and patron of the president of the Academy and architect to the Emperor Baron Hausner. He placed Urban in his own studio, and at 23 secured him a commission to redecorate one of the palaces of the Khedive of Egypt. From this early triumph, Urban went on to a great mass of work which included the building of castles for such nobles as Count Esterhazy, the Rathskeller and the Rathus in Vienna country villas, and the Tsar's bridge over the Neva in Petrograd, the result of winning an international competition, and the management of Imperial Jubilee. When he first designed rooms to house art exhibitions, his work began to tend towards the sort of expressive decoration which he now contributes to the stage. In 1900 he went to Paris to arrange the Australian art exhibit at the exposition. He found a great many more paintings on hand than could possibly be hung, and as sole juror he promptly threw out all the academic, conventional, and recognized artists for the younger men. The result, when Urban returned to Vienna, was a row which resulted in a score of artists leaving the Vienna Academy with him to found a famous secession society, for which he designed a remarkable building. The creation of such exhibition rooms obviously suggests work for the stage. For the walls in a museum should, ideally, suggest the nature of the pictures on view just as much as scenery should suggest the mood of the action in a play. In 1904, his friendship with the director of the Vienna Hofburgtheater led Urban to join another artist, Heinrich Leffler, in the designing of scenery. During the next 8 years, he made settings for the Vienna Hofburgtheater, the Vienna Hofoperntheater, and the Komische Opera in Berlin, and in various theaters in Braunschweig, Mannheim, Cologne, Stuttgart, Lauchstadt, Charlottenburg, Hamburg, Duisburg, Budapest, and finally in 1912 he came to America. The logic which drove the architect into scenic decoration is unescapable. His early study had served him well by bringing him a wide knowledge of periods and detail. It also brought him a fine appreciation of the importance of new methods of lighting the stage. He has never met footlights in public buildings, and he prefers for the stage the wonderful varied shadows of daylight and the depths of night which have decorated palace, wall, and gate as no row of staring footlights ever could do. Scheming out sources of beautiful and effective lighting in his buildings, Urban learned the great lesson which he expresses thus: "Paint not so much with colors, surfaces, and artificial perspectives, as with the actual glories of light itself." In a similar way, Urban's training as an architect showed him that the essential problem in stage design is how to make a place upon the stage express the mood of what goes on there. The architect has always faced a double problem that roughly corresponds to this. The complexity of the architect's work, ranging from plumbing to matters of pure design, is a splendid preparation for the immense number of practical details that enter into either a stage or a screen production. He sees that the designing of scenery is a great deal more than a matter of painting a picture on a backdrop and calling it a production. That is the fault into which the Russian painters, Bakst in particular, have fallen. Out of his experience as an architect as well as a producer, Urban has drawn a deep belief in scenic design as a rounded art of many factors. The new art of the theater, he has said, is more than a matter of mere scenery. It concerns the entire production. The scenery is of no use at all unless it fits the play and the playing perfectly. The new art is a fusion of what is pictorial with what is dramatic. It demands not only new designs in scenery, but new stage directors who understand how to train actors in speech, gesture, and pose to harmonize with the setting. They must know how to establish a single key for the whole production. It must be a key in which simplicity and suggestion are the most essential factors. End of section 4.